Dawson Rider with you.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my series review for Digimon Universe Appli Monsters. So, if you are new to my reviews for series or episodes, I kind of have a loose structure, but I pretty much just say what's on my mind, so be prepared for that. But let's go ahead and dive right in. So, Appli Monsters was a bit of a different Digimon show. It was this first outing for this new brand of Digimon Universe Appli Monsters, which I presume they might try different concepts with that. But so it was interesting, and right off the bat, it was pretty obvious that they're trying to piggyback off Yokai Watch's success, which is funny now because it's kind of dying out. But they were trying to piggyback off of that, and on one hand that did bother me, just because, not so much on, oh, they're stealing other people's ideas, but just because it was like kind of sad. Because Digimon has been one of my favorite franchises for a long time, you know, kind of like there's the big three anime that I've followed since I was younger, which is Pokemon, Digimon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon hasn't had quite the staying power as Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Have basically had a steady stream of new iterations ever since their inception, like, not so much yearly for like Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, I guess neither of them is yearly, but I mean, you know what I mean. It's like Generation 1, Generation 2, Original GX, stuff like that. And Digimon kind of disappears for a few years and then comes back. It doesn't outright disappear completely. You still have games and other little things. But in terms of like a main series, like main attention, up until recently with the Tri stuff and then this, it's kind of more on and off. So it's understandable that it's not quite the juggernaut that I think Pokemon is, or even Yu-Gi-Oh! So it is a little bit lesser, but my point I was getting at with that is that it's kind of sad to see this franchise that's been around for over a decade that I love, that has a significant fan base, basically resorting to copying another flavor of the moment success. So that did bother me a little bit right off the bat from the initial announcement, and then as the series initially started. But I have to say, they did make clever use of the concept, basically substituting like yokais causing trouble for little Appmons causing trouble. And they, like I said, they made clever use of it. I found the initial batch of episodes to be entertaining in like the unique ways that they used sort of app and internet concepts in terms of this. And it definitely very much so made sense for Digimon to have that. So it was kind of one on each side. I'm like, this bothers me that they're using it, but they are using it well in certain instances. So there was that. So going into that with the story, honestly, I found the story to be very generic. Not that Digimon can't always be that at times, but this was very, very generic. Like setting up a classic evil Skynet-y artificial intelligence versus the good guys. And like I said, I actually enjoyed the first batch of episodes pretty decently, because I thought it was pretty fun. They made unique use of the concept despite copying things a little bit. But then as it went on, it honestly just became kind of a slog for me. There was about 2, maybe 3 times where I fell significantly behind and I had to catch up, because it was just hard for me to want to watch week to week, and it was even harder to binge. It wasn't one of those for me that sometimes when there's series I have trouble watching week to week, I'll binge it and I'll be like, oh, it was better binge. This really wasn't the case, except when I was able to watch it at 2 times speed a couple times. But it was so fillery and generic. I had such a hard time with it. And again, Digimon will have its filler, but I felt like it wasn't made use of well. It never felt like there was a lot of significant character development or memorable filler. It all felt like really frivolous, time-wasty stuff. And the plot was just so bare bones. And then just when I thought they would take off and we would really get into something cool, like a cool arc, they would drop off. For example, I think it was late 20s, maybe early 30s. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was the first time they went to the dark web. And I was like, cool. We're going to get at least a 2-episode arc, maybe 3 of them in the dark web. It was kind of reminding me when they first went to the Digiworld and Tamers. I'm like, this is going to be cool. It lasted 1 episode, and then they went back to some stupid nonsense filler episode that had absolutely no consequence right after that. And I feel like that sort of summarizes my experience with it. And it was just, I keep saying it was, I'll say this a lot probably during this review, but it was just so bland and so predictable, and so many of the plots they introduced wound up fizzling, and they had such potential. Even right down to the end, everything felt like it happened very quickly. The betrayal of Eugen was very choreographed, telegraphed for us. And then as soon as it happened, I knew there was going to be like, he's not going to stay evil. I mean, he kind of did, but I know there's going to be the, oh, we're best friends moment, and then they left. Or then he died, and then they're going to bring him back. Like, it was all, as soon as they telegraphed what was going to happen to Eugen, like way back when they first hinted at it, I was like, okay, he's gonna betray them, but then not really, because they really do have a friendship bond, and then he's either gonna die or stay alive, and if he does die, they're gonna bring him back. And it was just so predictable. And another plot element that I had a problem with was Rei's brother. First of all, if Toku has a, like, kind of a stigma or a traditional storyline of missing parents, Digimon has something about a sibling. There's been so many missing or like evil or whatever sibling stories. We had it in a little bit in the original series with Matt and TK, and we had it just recently in Cross Wars / Fusion. We had it in Frontier. It's been so overdone. So like instantly when that was introduced as his main plot, I was rolling my eyes. And then it became kind of interesting when you found out his brother got kidnapped and turned into an Appmon. I'm like, oh, that's kind of disturbing. And there was like half theory I had that Hackmon was him. And then you found him and he was this little cloud puff, which was kind of underwhelming but also kind of unsettling. And then he's cured because yes. I hated that. I thought that was one of the few interesting pillars I had in Appmon. And then they just, okay, it's done. And so it went from generic to really interesting to flatlining for me. And that, again, another summarizing situation for the plot. And like I said, the main plot was overall generic. You had Minerva as this intelligence that was created, and then an evil part of it split off, which is Leviathan. And there was a bit of confusing bits for me where it made it seem like Minerva recruited the app drivers or the Digidestin or whatever. But then it was like, oh no, but Leviathan chose these Appmon as the best Appmon and was using you to get their data. I don't know which one it was, whether they were trying to out-twist themselves or what. I guess my main point boils down to, I found the plot to be very generic, forgettable, some bad writing, and I think that they did introduce some really cool concepts. They made really cool use sometimes of the general internet concepts. And they also introduced some good potential plot ideas, but then just kind of dropped them off. And it's very frustrating. And I was thinking about this recently with some other series I'm watching, and it's not always possible to have a completely original plot that's not done very often because just narratives have been going on for so long. But you can still have sort of a generic plot that there's something about it you make interesting if that is possible, and I think Appmon failed at that. Getting into characters, I use this because I feel like no one was really a character. For me, personally, was the weakest cast of Digimon characters in history. Mainly because they never felt like characters. They felt like they were all just catchphrases, especially Eri and Astra. It's like if you were to take the Wikipedia summary of a character that's 4 sentences long and then make it into a character and that's all they have, that's what I felt they all were. Haru was a really generic protagonist. He was the most basic one I've ever seen. Eri was just sort of catchphrase about an explosive punch and wanting to be an idol. And Astra was just, are you feeling this or whatever. And Rei was generic, brooding character whose brother was lost. Yujin was just as boring. And then you have the generic betrayed storyline. Like, starting with Haru, like I said, he was just so basic. It's like, if plain toast was made into 2 characters, it would be Haru and Yujin. Haru was the most generic protagonist. And the whole storyline was about, I liked that bit at the beginning of the whole, do you want to be a protagonist? And basically I thought that was a cool, relatable bit of like, do you want to do something significant? Do you want to be a protagonist? You know, do you want to be important? And that was cool, but he was just so generic. He reminded me of Toku characters in some recent years that have bothered me, where, again, they're just caricatures, and they just have generic responses to things, of like inspirational quotes, and they never feel like a real person. And I feel like most of the other goggleheads had some sort of fire to them, some sort of spunk, some sort of chutzpah. But he just had nothing, and I disliked him so much. He was so generic and at times whiny, and I did not like him at all. Eri, I think, was my least favorite because every time she said she wanted to deliver explosive punch, I wanted to deliver explosive punch to my wall. That was her whole character. It was just a catchphrase, and there's basically shallowly wanting to be an idol. I know there's the stuff of, oh, she wanted to bring smiles to people, but maybe it's a cultural thing, but I'm never a huge fan of that wants to be an idol character because it always just comes off as a really shallow character. And like I said, there was bits, I know, because people will probably bring it up, of like, oh, she wanted to bring smiles to people, but she was so one note. I don't even want to go on about her. I just found her to be annoying. She annoyed me the most. and her like focus episodes were my least favorite. Astra I actually liked, at least liked okay. He was probably my favorite because he was so relatable, because he was an AppTuber, which is a YouTuber, but that actually kind of was the reason. Him and Yujimon's bit was actually the least annoying to me, and like some of his focus episodes were kind of solid, and I did kind of like the YouTuber storyline just because it was kind of relatable to me, but also I liked that it was kind of a current like kind of episode of the week to do, because you know in TV shows you get sort of the episode of the week, then there's like 15 different ones we've been cycling through on all kinds of TV for years, and this one was about something like about YouTube, which is kind of a newish thing to have a generic episode about. So I liked him, but he still also was often just a catchphrase. As I mentioned with Ray, he was kind of the generic badass, and I didn't really have a problem with him other than I found him to be generic. I mean, he was just the classic brooding because my brother's missing storyline, and there wasn't too much to him after that, honestly. Yujin, I did not like at all. I found him to be possibly even more boring than Haru. And it's really funny seeing people, there's so many people that really loved the Haru-Yujin friendship, and I did not see that. I mean, I don't mean not seeing why, everyone can have their own opinion, but I just did not see the connection. It reminded me of various friendships and romances in certain TV shows I've watched where I felt like they didn't properly show me and get me invested in their connection. Rather, they just told me, look how connected these two are. They're so connected because we're telling you that they're connected. That's what it felt like. I didn't feel like we ever really saw like an episode or a storyline or a reason why I was really understanding the connection between these two. We were just told about it via flashbacks and via dialogue, and I did not like that he was the basically like Sixth Ranger Digidestined. I think that the impact would have been more of him being evil would have been more interesting had he been in the dark / not Digidestined for all the series. So because there was like a big point made before he joined of, oh yeah, he doesn't know and I feel really bad. If like he was kind of on the outside and didn't know anything, was just kind of a general allied character that didn't know about the digital world stuff, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's actually been gathering intel this whole time and he's evil. I thought that would have been more impactful and given Appmon a better partner and given us a chance at a different, more interesting Digidestined. I don't have really anything to say about any of the side human characters. I found them all to be pretty forgettable outside of their designs. Like in my head right now, I can think of their designs, but I can't think of their names or anything significant they did. The grandpa was just kind of the crazy crackhead character that was like helping Minerva and helped guide them and stuff. And he kind of had that, he was the one that made the Appli drives. Kind of like we had the storyline in Kyoryuger where we found out why the voice was the way it is. As far as the Digimon goes, character-wise, I actually didn't have too huge a problem with any of them. Gachimon was a pretty solid, like, generic, goggle-head Digimon protagonist, and he did have a bit more fire to him. Dokomon was probably my biggest disappointment because he's probably my favorite of like the rookie designs, because he kind of reminds me of Vmon, who's one of my favorite Digimon, and he was like the one I initially attached to in the promo images, and he ended up being really streaky and annoying. I liked Mujimon quite a bit. His design really grew on me over time. Like, I didn't hate it, but I really grew to appreciate it, and I found it to be unique. And again, him and Astro were probably my favorite duo. And Hackmon was pretty cool as well. He had kind of just a cool personality. I liked his design as well. And Appmon was pretty adorable, and I really liked bits of his storyline and his personality and how he related to like his powers, how his personality related to his powers. And just speaking to the designs for a second, that's something that also disappoints me, is that because it was such a disappointment as a series, hurts me more because the designs were honestly some of my favorite probably all time of Digimon. I pretty much liked all their, I'm going to just call them my rookie champion stages, but like their rookie stages, and then basically their champion stages I thought were also really neat. I liked Mediamon especially quite a bit. I thought he was really unique looking. And all the ultimate ones I thought were really awesome. Globemon looked really, really cool. Ojimon looked freaking badass. The only problem with him is that he kept the Dokomon voice, so you have this awesome looking multi-armed warrior, and then he's like Intermon was also really cool looking. Revivemon was a huge badass dragon, what's not to like about that. And Shutmon was also quite cool. They all had really cool designs. There's honestly very few that I don't even really dislike. I just have least favorites because I thought they were some of the strongest designed Digimon's ever done. One thing I did have a problem with that stuff was the way they used the apps, basically like the Yokai Watch stuff. and then they basically then used an aspect of fusion or crossing to create these next levels, and I felt that to be very needless. I think they very easily still could have done the Yokai Wachi summon allied Digimon, but just basically kept the stages like regular Digivolution, because that's basically what they were. Outside of the god level Appmons, which were also pretty neat, I actually really only liked Gaiamon. I wasn't too huge a fan of the other ones. Revivemons was pretty cool, or I can't remember their names, but anyway, sidetracking. My point is they basically, outside of the god level ones, which I felt more directly incorporated the enemies they just fought, were basically straight up Digivolutions with very little to do with the partner Digimon they fused with. And I would have them rather just done straight up Digivolution, because they even wound up getting a chip to just straight up go to that stage without having to do the fusion with both of them. So they should have just kept it straight up normal, and then you still could have had the little allied Appmon from your Yokai Watch episodes come in and give them special powers or weapons. Or they could have structured it sort of like they did the God Appmons at the end, where they basically had to defeat an enemy to steal their power. So instead of having, oh, Navimon and Gachimon are fusing, but not really. It's basically Gachimon with Navimon being used as parts. So instead of having a not really fusion, you just have it so that Navimon was an enemy. And then you have to destroy him and basically use his data now to Digivolve. So they could have, I think, handled that better. And speaking of, after the initial batch of episodes of Yokai watching it, the allied Appmon really weren't seen much after that. Navimon was the only one that I think I saw in the last quarter of episodes that I remember. Everyone else basically disappeared. I think Perori-Mon, the cooking one, showed up for a two-parter a little past halfway through, or a one-parter, I don't know. But I don't know, that wasn't made good use of, I thought. They had really cool concepts there at the beginning, but then by the end it just kind of petered off. So my point is I see what they were going for and what they wanted to do toy sales wise, but I think there was a way to balance it between normal Digimon stuff, trying to do that toy marketing stuff, and like what they wanted to do. There's one other thing that I wanted to draw attention to in this section about designs is something that kind of bothered me about the series was the use of 3D models, which is something that Yu-Gi-Oh! Also uses. And I'm like never one to complain about this, because I hate people that are like, 3D animation isn't as beautiful as that 2D. It's just, I think it should be one or the other. Like, I like 3D and 2D for cartoons. It just bothers me when you have the 3D and 2D when it feels jarring. It reminds me of watching an animated DC movie, and they all of a sudden have a car or a Batmobile in 3D, and it looks off. And sometimes the 3D look for the Digivolved forms looked kind of cool. Like as the Ultimate ones went on, they looked pretty cool. The tribute episode with Agumon, where he was the War Greymon, admittedly looked cool. But it still was just jarring to me. And I'm trying to think how to say this. The most, like, irritating it was, I couldn't figure out how to say that, was like Mienumon, I think, was this kind of main villain in the beginning of the series. She looked unbelievably out of place, especially when she was in just talking scenes with other Digimon in 2D. It looked like awful Foxbox era animation, and I wish they hadn't done that. I just wanted to bring attention to that because it bothered me. But anyway, so overall, if you couldn't tell, I had a very, very rocky experience with Appmon, and it bothers me that I did, because like I said, I love Digimon. And there was things I liked about it, concepts, ideas, designs, some characters, but overall it was honestly a disappointment for me, and kind of a chore to watch by the end, and I really hate that. I'm really hoping that Digimon is going to continue. I mean, I'm sure it will, but I'm just hoping for sooner than later. Like, outside of, we have Tri sort of continuously going on over various months, but I'm hoping for another announcement for a series soon. I kind of hope we see a new aspect under the Digimon Universe umbrella. I think it would be cool to get a fresh start. If we do continue with the Appmon concept, whether it's right after or we pick it up later, I'd like to see some new characters, just because I wasn't really a fan of most of these characters. And regardless of whether we keep new characters or get new characters, excuse me, or keep old ones, I really hope the writing improves. But overall, this series was just slightly above average for me on its best day. I would probably give it a 6.5 overall. But anyway, that's about it. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Dawson Ryder, signing out.